It's gonna be a good day, Jack. It's gonna be a really good day.
Got some baby shampoo, Joe.
John's sitting nice right now. John, what
That's
happened?
my flasher. It's gonna bring the wahoo in, that white patch.
Oh my god. Oh, that's nice.
My other wetsuit's gonna rip
I was getting my stuff together. I just heard I looked up, John's like, what the dude, a little crusty. Yeah, you need a new wetsuit, John.
It's like 10 years old.
It's 10 years, that thing's running on borrowed time. Welcome back underwater, everybody. So now, today you're going to see a multiple zones of diving. And we start off first, we want to start off early. We rock the flashers. We're going for some pelagic fish. And we're diving some deeper wrecks. But unfortunately, when we hopped in, we saw a ton of bull sharks around. Now, that's not always a bad thing. Sometimes you might get lucky and you might get a chance to, a cobia running up under a bull shark. But I do know that I rarely see wahoo when I see a lot of bull sharks like this. It may not be true, but from what my experience, usually when the bull sharks are around, it's a little less likely that wahoo will be around. And I'm assuming is because, they're another predator in the area and maybe the wahoo seem threatened or they just don't like a lot of attention when it comes to, sharks being around. But either way, we end up hopping out. Kind of cut our losses, didn't really see much on this first spot, and we might try this spot a little bit later. Alright, so we abandoned the wrecks, and we're going to go ahead in a little bit more shallow, try to maybe go after some reef fish, maybe some rubble piles, crystal clear viz, no current, but yeah, we're gonna, which is kind of ideal for reef fishing, so it's good to bounce around different zones if something's not working out. But we do think if the current picks up at these wrecks with the viz, could bring in some really good pelagic. So fingers crossed, when we go back there later, we'll get into some wahoo or something good. So this spot is like 70 feet, and when we first hopped in, I saw that Scott was lining up on a fish. I didn't have my GoPro rolling, but he was lining up on a fish, and fully extended, and he was kicking, and he ended up taking the shot. I hauled butt over there, and he shot a really good mutton, and it got rocked up. So now I was rocking the Subnado by Waydoo, and if you haven't seen my other video, be sure to check it out at the end of this. I go in way more depth on that product. But one thing was great, was that I was able to sit here and fight the current and not burn any energy. So it's like a little jetpack that's on your arm. You can see this was kind of a whole mess. It is good that Scott was rocking the slip tip. Probably wouldn't have landed the fish, but also it gave the fish a lot of freedom to swim around and get all hung up in this rock. So I kind of just cut, I was like, man, we're gonna have to figure something out. The fish is pretty much dead. He's all worn out from getting banged up against the rocks. But I was kind of assessing the situation, and I realized, shoot, okay, we have to just work him back out the way he came in. So I go up to the surface, reassess, and then I believe I told Scott that we could just pull him right out that hole. And then I think he makes another drop, and he actually retrieves it. But I'll show you what happens real cool in a second here. We'll have to pull him through, because yeah, I might be able to do that. There's a Goliath down there too. So what I ended up doing was I had Scott grab onto my arm, and we're just sitting here fighting the current, expending no energy using the Subnado. So I'm pushing, and I think I ended up pushing him ahead so he can make a drop and land right on the spot.
I got your gun. Just rip the fish, and then I'll get your.
So honestly, this is very doable, even if we didn't have the Subnado, but it makes it a heck of a lot easier, especially for a certain situation just like this. You can see if we were kicking against the surface, it makes it dangerous. We expend a lot of energy, but this way it's a lot easier to get a rocked up fish.
Nice, dude.
No, I gotta get that shaft out.
I'll get it out.
It went under that rock.
I'll get it out. I'll get it
It's
out.
not that bad. Right?
No, it's not. Here, just hold on to your gun, or just we can let your gun float back.
So now when Scott got that fish, he did leave the spear down there because I think he just ended up ripping the slip tip out of the fish and left the spear hung up. So I just used the Subnado. I was holding myself on position above the rubble, and then whenever I was ready to go, same thing, expended no energy, didn't have to kick all the way down, and it actually enabled me to try to get a fish on this dive as well. So I start heading down the line, and I'm still like fighting the current. Like I'm going at a diagonal direction to get down to the spot. But you can see I ended up leaving my gun down there just to try to, you know, ward off any Goliaths or anything like that. Maybe they might not mess with it, but expended no energy, makes the breath hold really easy, especially for extractions like this. Ended up getting the spear out. I kind of threw it out in the sand, so whenever he pulls his gun up, you know, it won't hook on any rock or anything. But I go ahead and get my spear, and now I feel really good. I have plenty of bottom time left because I, you know, had that Subnado giving me less effort to get down. Decided to shoot that fish, and for some reason my flopper did not engage, and the fish just came right off the spear. It was like a perfect shot right through the gill plate. Unfortunately, that fish is not gonna make it. But I ended up finding out my flopper was a little bit kind of finicky. It was a little harder to move, so I ended up loosening that up a little bit later on to where I made sure that didn't happen again.
I don't know how my flopper didn't engage. My flopper didn't engage. Shot a nice mangrove. Yeah, I saw it. Hey Scott, your spear is good. Just pull it. Just don't lose your gun.
So now one thing is I really think you guys should, if you have any faulty equipment, or this was the first time I saw this happening, I ended up getting my knife out. I cleaned out the edges. There was like a little bit of rust, and I just made sure that nothing like that was going to happen again. And even if you see some part of your gear that you're like, oh, this might hold, or oh, I think I'll be okay, just don't give it the benefit of the doubt. Go with your gut and fix your gear so nothing happens. So if there's a splice, like a little split in your mono, if you're shooting mono, or if there's, you know, some of your bands are cracked, you're about to go on a trip, I highly suggest making sure and triple checking your gear, making sure everything is 100%, not just 90, but 100% ready to spearfish. So again, I saw a big mangrove from the surface. I used the Subnado to haul butt down because, you know, I'm sure the fish was going to come in and then leave. And I shot this fish. And one thing I did with shooting around these rubble piles, if you don't stone the fish, which I was going for this kind of the stone shot, if you don't stone the fish, snatch your line back and get a hold of the fish. Snatch your line back and try to keep the fish from getting. If they get into the rocks, they get into the rocks, but don't just be like, oh, screw it, he's in the rocks. Keep that line tight, keep them from going deeper in the rocks to where they are only at the edge, and you end up getting the situation that I have rather than like Scott's situation where it goes under multiple rocks through different underhangs, and it makes it much easier to pull the fish out and get them up to the surface. And as always, a little example of how I bleed, brain, and everything. I do everything while I have the fish, you know, held up in the gills like that. And also, like I said, gutting, highly suggest gutting. Saves ice, makes it easier cleaning job. I heard there's, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard there's parasites in the stomach that go into the meat when they die.
Got a nice bang. You got a big boy. You want to hop in or you want to get in? Oh, okay, yeah, here, I'll get in. Here, hold on, let me gut this guy real quick. Here, just grab this. I didn't get a chance to load it. Hold on, let me pull the guts out.
So I don't know when this happened, but I did cut my hand, and stay tuned. You'll see, you know, how it or not happened, but you'll actually see the cut here in a minute.
There you go. You grab his eyeballs. Nice fish. Yeah, it's a good man. Freaking cut my finger. What'd you say, John? I think it's great. It keeps me on the spot.
I don't know. I struggle clearing my ears.
Really?
You good?
Cut my finger. Yeah. Look at that. I don't know.
So things on this spot are going well. There's still fish around, so we decide to hang out for just a couple more dives, at least secure dinner, and if we get, you know, wahoo, cobia, something else like that, it would just be icing on the cake. But we just wanted to make sure we had dinner when we came home. So again, it also gave me an opportunity to use that Subnado. Head straight down to the bottom. Saw a couple mangroves from the surface in the area, so I know if I go down, sit in the sand for just a minute, the mangroves would come in. So that's exactly what I do. I kind of go in between the two rubble piles, so I get all the way down to the sand, and then, you know, it'll pique interest of other fish. They'll kind of come over the top of the rocks, kind of come from off in the distance. They'll be like, what is this thing in between the rocks? So that's what I do. I'm just kind of hovering just above the sand, waiting for those mangroves to come in, trying to pick out the biggest one. And once I have my eyes set on the biggest one, even if one that's similar comes by, I just stick with the one that I focused on. This one, same thing. I was going for the stone shot a little high, and once I saw that, I just gave him slack and just made sure I got my hands on the fish before I tried pulling the spear. And I ended up pushing the spear down into the sand to get a hold of the fish. Like I said, a big tip for the trick, or big tip, if you're grabbing the fish, always grab either in the gills or in the eyeballs. I know that might sound gross, but I'll always grab them in the gills or the eyeballs, just to get a hold of the fish. I don't sit there and, you know, keep holding in the eyeballs, but if I need to quickly grab them, I get the eyeballs, then I get my hands in the gills, and that's a really good handle where you can get a hold of the fish and control them. Other than that, people try grabbing the tails, the bodies, it'll just slip right out of your hands. It's happened to me plenty of times. And just like any fish, I usually leave the spear in when I brain and bleed them, just so it's not another thing I have to hold on to. But sometimes I end up, you know, that thing was about to fall out. I didn't want to deal with the flopper, so I just pulled the spear out because it was ready to come out, and I just put it between my legs. You can see right there, same thing, brain, bleed, gut, preserve the meat, make sure it's as highest quality as possible, especially if you have the means to do so. Just makes the meal and everything, the whole process, the whole after harvesting process, so much better.
Need 2 hands for this one. Stud. I shot John. That's John's fish. Ew, ew. What's wrong with that meat shot?
So we were in the water, or in the boat, ready to go. Spencer was the last one, but he made a drop, and we kind of, you know, it's just not a good idea to let someone dive alone. So, and it's a good thing because I went over there, saw that he shot a fish, and I was just going there just to make sure that, you know, he had the fish secured. Also, I wanted to kind of play around with the Subnado thing because this thing is super fun. So I'm not even kicking. I'm just using the Subnado just to haul butt over to the rock pile where Spencer's at. And saw that he's lining up on a fish. Makes a really good shot. Does the same thing I did, just snatches him away from the rock so he doesn't get all up inside of the, hung up inside of there. And this just added another fish for the cooler, so we secured dinner. But now we're gonna probably head out to maybe a deeper area to where we get into something different.
Nice, dude.
So this is us hitting a different zone. It's probably around the same depth, but we're sticking more to reef. And the advantage of this is you have longer drifts you can make. You can actually drift and cover more ground rather than being on one little rubble pile, which can kind of be a pain kicking and keeping up with it. But I still use that Subnado. I make a drop. My flasher kind of goes down into this little crevice, and I feel like this is a perfect area to kind of camp out and hope that, you know, a big kingfish or something comes cruising by. And I just end up bouncing along the bottom. I could have just went down there and sat at the bottom, but I really was. I did this a little bit before and wasn't really seeing anything. So I was just trying to cover a little bit of ground, using the current to kind of just push me along without, you know, exerting energy. But I'm really just hoping for pelagics at this point because we're not seeing a whole lot of reef fish or bottom fish. But it looked like a potential area that held fish, but unfortunately I ended up heading up to the surface, and then something crazy happens next. John ends up making a blind drop, and he was halfway to the bottom, and an absolute tank of a kingfish comes by, and it was an absolute monster. He ended up taking a shot, and he was just out of range, and I think he may have came up just shy of the tail, but it would have been nice to, you know, in hindsight, I think maybe to not pull the trigger on a farther fish is better because there's a chance of them turning around, especially with multiple divers in the water. But I ended up throwing my flasher like immediately when I saw the fish, just in case he needed to come back around. But yeah, this is a clip of John taking the shot at the big king. And yeah, you see there me tossing my flasher immediately. And I was just really hoping he would turn around and come back, but no luck with this guy. And same thing, gonna probably hit a different zone.
Oh shit!
So you should have been calm. I threw a flasher.
I didn't see it, and then there it goes.
Huge king. What you got? What you got? What you packing? So, for some reason, once we get on a boat, we get real stupid. I think it's a guy thing. We just get really dumb. Oh, by the way, I just puked, so take a look at that footage. Here he is, guys. The champ. Captain Jack Spearo. Come on, do it. The camp.
Hey, there's not even any volume to that.
There it is.
That's a real one.
Hey, Spencer, is this yours?
All right, so we just hit up the reef. Oh, and I tried that Subnado, and it worked out really well, especially to hold us on the spot when a couple of those fish are rocked up. But we're headed back to the reef. Hopefully, I'm taking the Subnado off. Hopefully we,
What kind of snacks?
some wahoo come by. What?
What kind of snacks do we have?
Why do you want snacks?
Hungry.
I don't have any. They're in the cooler. We shot them. That's our snacks. But we're gonna hit up some deeper wrecks, deeper than before, maybe in like 100, 120.
and yeah, hopefully wahoo come around.
Sir.
It's the time of year. We got some swell, we got cool weather. Water's not very cold though, but I don't know. Nothing left to do but just to check it out. This might be our last little drop though.
I've been bringing soy and stuff on the boat, because every time I do it, I never catch it with fish.
So same thing as earlier in the day. We got the flashers dropping down. We're diving a different area, and sure enough, we're there for about probably 5 minutes, and then just here comes all the bull sharks. We ended up seeing a small cobia on one of these bulls, but I make a drop, and these guys are just way too friendly. I mean, if we make a dive, there's not going to be wahoo just swimming through this huge pack of bull sharks. Like I said, just never seen that before. I mean, if you see 1 or 2 bull sharks, maybe, but they're just patrolling and just begging for us to shoot something at this point. Especially this guy. You can see how friendly they are when they come in like this. And also, mind you, the GoPro, this guy was probably about 5 feet from my GoPro. It's on that wide angle lens, so you don't get that real effect. But yeah, these guys came in really close. They were super friendly, which is fun to dive with them. But yeah, not if you're trying to spearfish, and you know we've already done enough sightseeing for the day, so we're ready to maybe get one last good fish in the box and call it a day. But nothing on this spot. Headed up to the surface. Want to try a different area, and so we go maybe a little bit deeper, and there's good chances of there being even sharks in the deeper area, but they would be probably solo or maybe ones with big cobia on them. And so kind of cut our losses at this spot, kind of gave up on the wahoo diving, and we're gonna just go ahead and send it maybe for some different species.
Crazy, way less fish on that drift. That was weird. Way less fish on that drift.
So even when we're cobia diving, we still have the flashers in, because you don't know what it could bring up. But we're in probably 300 feet right now, and we're on some rubble area, just an area that has some relief, and it does tend to hold some fish. Obviously, there's sharks there. There could be other things there. But I just make a blind drop, and I just follow this shark because this is kind of like the first shark that came up to us. Has some, rainbow runners with it, which I could shoot, but I was just, holding off. And this shark kind of goes off into the deep, and I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna kind of follow him and coast down towards the deep with him, and just see what happens. So you see that shark at the top of my screen. I'm just kind of tucking my head. I'm just coasting down. I'm probably at about 70 feet right now, maybe 65. And then I see another shark deeper. And once I see that, I see a big shadow under it. And when I get closer, you'll be able to see what I see. There's an absolute tank of a cobia under it. And that's a big bull shark. And that cobia is probably over half of its size. It does that little flutter. And I'm just coasting towards him. I'm not trying to give him any pressure, but he just keeps on going and going and going, and he just gets a little bit. Even if I got a shot on him, I would be super deep, and it could, have a recipe for disaster. So I just cut my losses. The good news is he's around, and hopefully he comes in again. But yeah, we'll just hang out and see what happens.
Big fucking cobia. Big cobia under one of the bulls.
So we do a little more chumming, a little more slap in the water.
Let's try and get him up with a water bottle or something.
Hey, get a water bottle over here. Huge cobia.
And really just hope doing anything to try to get more sharks up and maybe potentially bring up that cobia.
Shoot one of those rainbow runners.
Alright, so such a bummer. Missed opportunity on Wahoo. That cobia, God, that was a big cobia. Was right. It was close.
Cooked it, gosh.
I don't think there's much I could have done. The thing just fluttered and just took off. And but yeah, that thing was almost the size of the shark. It was at least 40. It could have been pushing 50 pounds. But we sat around, tried to get those sharks to come in. They wouldn't have anything to do with us. So just wasn't the day of the sharks. But we did get some dinner, and I'll show you everything whenever we get back to the ramp. And what we were doing for those, to try to get those sharks in, we just were working the flashers really hard, slapping the surface, and we were also chumming the little bit that we had. We weren't like making big chunks, but we were putting enough scent in the water to where it could intrigue them. But there were a lot of sharks that came around, but not the one that had the big cobia on it, or maybe it broke off. I think it broke off. Because there were like 5 or 6 sharks in there at one time and none of them had it on it. Yeah, it must have broke off of that shark and just went home. But either way, we're heading in. It is kind of chilly out here, so I'm gonna kind of cover up a little bit. And I'll see you guys back in the ramp. All right, so we got some quality. Did you shoot that, John?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, you ain't going home hungry.
You're saying the Florida, what's it?
We got
after last cold.
the size of that egg. That's a good mangrove. Dude, that mangrove is almost the size of that mutton.
Well, it hasn't been closed for 5 years yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Oh, it's about to be.
Let's get
closing
acquainted
it
with
for
this guy.
5 years.
See you loose. Yes, so. What do you guys having a good dinner tonight?
Yeah. Oh, where do you live?
We're gonna have to confiscate these fish, guys.
Look at them. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we got lucky. Had a good day.
And we caught beer too.
Caught some beer.
Yeah, we caught some beers right there.
Yeah, sure. There's not even a hole in the can.
I know.
That's what made it worthwhile.
Oh, jellyfish.
All right.
There's something wrong with this one. There's a hole in it.
You left with just the head.
Yeah, you like mutton head soup, right? Here.
Hey, is that? All right, good. You got some kind of thumbnails. With coconut milk.
You're just sashimi that, John?
Yeah, I'm sashimi in this. I don't know. It might be ceviche.